You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
Thunderbird 5 gets grounded in FAB Facts.
A bear and a bomb make an explosive combination in the Randomiser.
and we continue our chat with self-proclaimed super nerd Byron Atkinson-Jones
That's all coming up in Pod 127.
of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Hello, Richard James. This is Jamie
Oh.
Anderson here.
Hello there, I thought you looked familiar.
And over there, by the way, I think
Yeah.
he's just out of shot, but that's
yes.
Chris Dale.
Hello, Chris Dale.
And I guess when
Ah.
our powers combine, we
Yeah.
become the hosts of the Gerry
The
Anderson,
Gerry Anderson
podcast. Yeah. Which is basically a podcast all about the worlds of Gerry Anderson.
Well, yeah, you say that. We sometimes stray into the worlds of domestic farming.
That's true.
Ice cream.
Culinary accidents.
Yeah. You know, anything can happen in the next half hour.
And the other hour.
yeah.
Yes, this generally lasts from 60 to 90 minutes, and we have
Yes.
all sorts of stuff, including the following. Over to you,
Well,
Richard
we have-
James.
Yeah, Fab Facts in just a moment, of course. Jamie's favourite part of the podcast. We've got Chris Dale's Randomiser. That's why he's here. That'll be along a little later on, whereby he sits down in front of a random Gerry Anderson episode to give us his thoughts and comments. We have emails, Facebook messages and tweets from our wonderful Podsterons. We've got news from the Gerry Anderson universe, a little look at what's been happening since we last met, and we've got the final part of Jamie's interview with Byron Atkinson-Jones.
Oh, yes,
Is that right?
we do.
Yeah,
He's
it is.
a gaming
Great.
engineer working for PlayStation and doing stuff on the PS5 and top secret things he can't talk about. But thankfully, he can talk about non-top secret things like his fondness for Gerry Anderson and how the worlds of science fiction and Anderson in particular got him into his profession, as well as some
Great.
views on the potential for the future of CGI and where the kind of boundaries between model practical stuff and virtual are beginning to blur. So really interesting across the board.
Yeah.
Thank you for that marvellous introduction, Richard James.
No, that's quite all right. I don't think I missed anything out, did I?
If you did, we'll cover it in the podcast itself.
Yeah, true.
Which begins, as we have come to sort of expect and we've established
Yes,
in the pattern
dread.
of presentation here.
yeah.
All right, Fab Facts.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, as I'm sure you all know by now, this is Richard James's absolute favourite part of the podcast because he expresses his delight every week without fail.
Yeah, get on with it.
I've got a book of Fab Facts. I flick through the book, Richard shouts Fab at a random point where I start flicking, and then I read you out the Fab Fact from that page. Are you ready, Richard James?
Born ready, Jamie.
Are you ready, Podsterons? Great. Then here we go.
Fab!
Ooh. 1964/5.
Okay,
And I
yeah,
put the emphasis on the 5
you did.
for a good reason here. Name me an important name from the world of Gerry Anderson. I don't mean a character name, I mean a person.
Richard James.
Okay, not quite as important as Richard James, but nearly.
Right. I suppose there's a bit of a sliding scale, isn't there? Who are we talking? Steve Begg?
Further back in time.
Further back in time. Are we talking, I don't know, let's say, Victor Bergman.
That is a character, so no.
Oh,
But
I
further
see,
back in
yes.
time again.
So talking behind the scenes, Christine Glanville.
No. Boom.
I mean, that's going way back. Oh. What happened?
Bang.
Did you drop something?
Ah.
Yeah, Derek Meddings?
That is correct, Richard.
Aha.
A very important name
Yep.
in the world of Gerry Anderson, particularly because of his influence on the special effects through
Yes.
all the shows. He was special effects director and supervisor and the designer and all-round master of blowing up, well, pretty much everything, including studio buildings occasionally.
Oh, I should say so.
I'm sure we'll cover that in a future Fab Fact, where the back of one of the studios was blown out by a slightly oversized explosion.
Oh, you're
However,
giving it away now.
that's not this one.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, on Thunderbirds, as well as being the special effects supervisor, Derek also designed all of the main Thunderbirds craft, and what an amazing job that he did.
Yes.
Thunderbird 2 in particular, just a timeless classic. However, when it came to the design for Thunderbird 5, he had a bit of a mental block.
All right.
I mean, fair enough after doing 1, 2, 3 and 4. I mean, they are stunning. It's hard to compete with those.
Yeah.
But none of the ideas that he came up with for Thunderbird 5 were particularly exciting. Dad wasn't hugely fond of them. But that's all well and good. This slightly latches on to a Thunderbird 6 plot element in that Jeff Tracy says to Brains, I want another Thunderbird, but there's no spec for it. Well, it's a bit like this. There was no particular spec for Thunderbird 5. So, Dad would say, I don't like this, but there was no real brief for Derek to latch onto.
Yeah.
However, eventually, inspiration struck Derek Meddings.
Right.
It wasn't, though, from any inspiration from a real-life space station or anything spacey or even based in aviation.
Yeah.
Instead, he was inspired by architecture. I say architecture, specifically a building on Tracy Island itself.
Oh, right.
Think about what's around Tracy Island. Obviously, the Tracy Villa and the pool and Thunderbird 2's launch bay and the occasionally rarely used Thunderbird 4 launch ramp and roundhouse. The thing that Thunderbird 3 launched through was a never used, well, seemingly never used guest house built above the Thunderbird 3 launch silo. Using that as a template, Derek was finally able to form an idea for the design of Thunderbird 5. Obviously, the finished design for Thunderbird 5 has a lot more going on than the roundhouse did, but clearly they actually just share the same basic shape.
Yes,
and so there's actually some rather nice visual symmetry with Thunderbird 3's silo being hidden beneath a building that looks like Thunderbird 5, and the fact that Thunderbird 3 connects to Thunderbird 5 when it gets up there. So isn't that amazing that, he was finding inspiration in real life and real aviation for so many other parts. This, I'm a bit stuck. And it ended up being a building that inspired a space station.
Yeah, no, I thought when you said a building, I was thinking along the lines of the old BBC television centre.
Yes,
because that's the sort of the round.
I wonder if Television Centre had any influence on that, or that it was just the sort of architectural zeitgeist of the 1960s.
So did Derek Meddings design Tracy Island too, as well as the craft?
I got a weird feeling that was more influenced by Bob Bell, I think. I don't actually know.
Okay.
So, Chris Dale, I'm sure you'll correct me, or Podsterons, you will.
Yep.
But it's nice that there's a bit of cross-pollination, and it actually kind of makes the whole world a bit more cohesive, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So,
it's a bit like us, though, isn't it? You say he designed Thunderbirds 1 to 4 and then was sort of stumped. He ran out of inspiration, didn't know where to look for Thunderbird 5. It's a bit like us having done 126 podcasts. And we've got to try and find inspiration for the 127th.
And where does that inspiration come from?
We look at what we've done before and just do that.
Just copy it, yes. Yeah, okay. Well, this one's inspired by Pod 29. No, I can't remember what happened in that one. Anyway, there you go. I mean, it's a bit like, not at all like, the station house in Space Precinct being inspired by Podley's face.
Now that is that. Hang on, what?
No, that's not true.
It
just looks like it.
I could see that. Yeah. How interesting.
Totally. No, I'm sure there are other things across Anderson shows and science fiction and just creativity in general where things inspire you unexpectedly. So if you spotted anything else or you know any other items across the Gerry Anderson universe, listeners, that have been inspired by something plain or strange, and that doesn't include the lemon squeezer in Thunderbird 1's launch bay, because that's just a literal usage, do let us know, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. But I think for this week, that brings us to the end of this week's Derek Fact.
Ah, lovely Derek Meddings. I mean, such a big name in the Gerry Anderson story.
Huge.
There are many people. I mean, obviously, Gerry himself was central to the success of the Gerry Anderson Legacy series, but there are many, many people without whom it just wouldn't have been the same, and perhaps not as successful. I don't know. Is that okay to say that?
I think that's fine.
People like Derek Meddings, people like your Mary Turners and your Christine Glanvilles, and obviously all the voice artists, the Shane Rimmers and the Denise Bryers and the David Grahams. And then later, some of the stars that came along for his live-action series, and the likes of Barry Gray. Gerry Anderson isn't just Gerry Anderson, is it? And perhaps that's the wonderful thing.
It is. It's a team effort, a family piece, and a a great big collaboration.
Yes, exactly. Now, talking of great big collaborations, where would we be without our wonderful Podsterons?
I wonder where you were going with that, but no, you're right. A lot of our content and a lot of feedback and stuff comes from them. If you are one of those who would like to say something, email us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, like maybe some of these people did.
Exactly. Mark Perkins, for example, where he's got in touch to say, "Hi there, Jamie Halloweenderson and Richard, soon-to-be craggy-faced."
Oh, nice.
Obviously written a week or so ago, just after Halloween. He says, "I just thought I'd drop you a line after listening to the interview with Leo Eaton." He says, "I always love the behind-the-scenes details, particularly when it comes to the Supermarionation era. And while I was listening to Leo, I realised how watching the shows has recently changed for me. Until I got drawn into the worlds of the podcast and the lovely Podsterons I've made great friends with, the credits at the end of each show meant very little to me. I knew of Derek Meddings and Shane Rimmer, but that was about it. Now, after more than 2 years of you both casting pods on a weekly basis, I recognise more and more of the names on the end titles and know much more about them. It's as though all these people who played a massive part in developing the worlds of Gerry Anderson are now part of my world, as I enjoy the shows once again on my ever-growing collection of DVDs and Blu-rays. Thanks for all the fab fun, Mark Perkins."
Cheers,
well,
Mark.
I mean, isn't that a lovely thought? And what a wonderful thing that you can now watch the credits at the end of those programs and go, "Oh, yes, I know about him. Oh, I know about her. Oh, she did that thing and he did this and that." And you can even go back and listen to them on previous interviews that we've had here on the podcast. I think that's lovely.
Bringing those names and their work to life, I think. Which is quite a nice job to do, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's a lovely thing to do. Have you ever been to Lincoln, Jamie?
Yes, Richard, I have been to Lincoln several times. Boston in Lincolnshire. I used to go rowing there on the canal. Very miserable, desolate place. I've been up to Lincoln to see Alex, who ran the Sci-Fi Symposium a couple of years ago that I spoke at.
Okay, all right.
I wasn't
expecting quite so detailed an answer. Well, it's just that we've heard from Mike from Lincoln. That's all. He says, "Hi, Jamie and Richard. Ever since I've been watching Gerry Anderson shows in the early 90s, one question has always gone unanswered." He says, "What is the origin of that wonderful whining and whirring mechanical engine sound we hear when Thunderbird 1 or 2 come into land? Granted, there are many noticeable exhaust sounds in Anderson productions, but this one seems the most used and even featured in guest vehicles, one such being the VGR rocket, as it's about to turn around in space from Captain Scarlet episode Renegade Rocket. I can remember being 6 years old and trying to mimic the sound by whistling as my Thunderbird 2 came into land on my nan's dining table." That's lovely. Thank you. Hope you can help, he says, from Mike in Lincoln. Any ideas, Jamie?
No.
No. Now, I seem to remember Ralph Titterton, of course, who knows a lot of stuff, I think, or it may have been Mark Simpson-Wedge, posting a while back about a particular jet sound that was used a lot, I think, in Thunderbirds. And it might have been a Vulcan bomber. I'm not entirely sure. My memory's very, very cloudy there. But obviously it was something like that. I'm sure there's someone out there who knows. If so, get in touch and we'll let Mike know. David Munns says, "Hi all, just wanted to forward a previous idea that I'd sent into the shop email a while back." He says, "How about turntable slip mats for record players? With designs of the series emblems such as the Spectrum logo, Wasp and International Rescue, etc. With the new silver screen vinyl soundtrack releases, which have proved popular, these could be a popular addition to the shop. Many thanks, David Munns." I like that idea.
And sent over to the team for their thoughts, and will be discussed on a call next week, in fact.
Yeah, lovely.
So there you go.
Nice idea. Yeah, very good. And finally for now, Alan Jones, I think, pressed the send button a bit too early here. He says, "Hello, gents. I just wanted to email to say that my perspective of the industry has really been brought into focus recently as working with a film crew for 3 whole days. He says, my respect for Gerry, Jamie and Richard and all the people involved with the industry. You don't realise how much work goes into..." And he stops there.
Oh.
I think we can take the point. Thank you, Alan.
Yes.
Do check your emails, your sent box, Alan. If there's anything you want to add to that email, drop it in to us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and we'll carry on next time.
I look forward to it. Now, Richard, I've found something for you.
Great.
Which I'm just going to hopefully play in very shortly.
It's not that cream you promised, is it?
Have you still got that rash?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear. No.
Only when I sit down.
It wasn't that.
Oh, right.
Prepare your ears for this.
Whoa!
Do you think that may have been the sound effect in question?
What on earth? Yeah, okay. Do we know what it is?
Landing jets from Thunderbirds. No, that is actually just from Thunderbirds.
Okay.
I think from Thunderbirds Our Go.
Wow.
But is that the sound you meant? And sound experts out there, do you know what that is derived from? We'd love to know. Podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk. Sorry, I interrupted you with a very loud sound effect.
No, that's it. That's great. That's the end of the emails for now. So it's a very timely sound effect. Yes.
Great.
But,
Touchdown.
Do get in touch with us, podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk, and we'll answer your questions as best as we can. Sorry, Mike from Lincoln. Also, of course, you can tweet us on Twitter, hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast, or tagging him, I'm Jamie Anderson, me, Richard N. James, or him over there, Chris Dalek. And also, you can join our Facebook group. Podsterons are very busy over there at the moment, doing lots of creative things to help us get through the next few weeks as England now goes into lockdown here in the UK.
Of course, yes. Well, in Wales, we're just about to get out of it. In fact, we've just got out of it recently. I did pop into the Facebook group and I saw some fantastic drawings.
Oh, yes.
One in particular of you and I think we were watching Lovejoy with Porky the Butchery Boy creeping up from behind. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Really nice. I think that's Heather drawing them, and then somebody else is colouring them in. They're doing the colour work on it. It's just lovely. I love the stuff there. So thank you, Podsterons. Keep up the great work.
Yeah.
Richard, would you like some Gerry Anderson news? Because there's some Gerry Anderson news, you know.
Well, if you've got some, I'd love some.
Okay, well then here is some Gerry Anderson news. Yes, Richard, go on. Do your usual intro here.
News.
That's very sweet. It's a dear Sean Connery, the face of Scott Tracy in many ways.
That's right.
Who passed away a few weeks ago. But no, we're looking forward now. So here is this week's Gerry Anderson news. Right, let's get going with First Action Bureau, episode 10, the 10th and final episode in series 1. I'll say no more, is going live this Thursday. Ooh. Everything is about to be turned on its head, if it wasn't already by episode 9. Goodness me, things are getting tough for Nero Jones.
Exciting.
If you haven't tried First Action Bureau yet, then I guess Thursday is a great day to do it, because you can binge all 10 episodes in one go, and it's completely free, and you can do it through any podcast app, or via YouTube, or on the website, firstactionbureau.com. Enjoy. Let us know what you think. The day after the last episode of First Action Bureau goes live, it's Farewell Friday. It's become a regular fixture for the Gerry Anderson store, where we make room for new and exciting bits and pieces by saying goodbye to 12 products each week. It'll be the last time they'll be available. There'll be a brand new selection this Friday. If you look in the special offers menu on the Gerry Anderson store, then you should be able to find it. It's updated every Thursday evening or Friday morning, so go and grab yourself some stuff before it disappears. One of the many things we're making room for is the 1612 range, a rather lovely set of UFO and Space 1999 goodies. They are flying off the pre-order shelves. Some stuff's in stock, like the Retro Eagle. Other stuff is on its way either before the end of the year or very early in 2021. But it's disappearing fast. We're not sure how much we can get. It's not in the price range for everybody, I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you really, really want something and you're able to spend sort of 50 to 145-ish pounds on some really smart collectibles, they are beautiful things. So, go and grab those before they disappear. Other rather smart collectibles that are on their way. Finally, the Big Chief figures are on their way from China, coming direct to our warehouse. And I really hope we're going to do everything we possibly can to get them out to you before Christmas if you've pre-ordered.
Nice.
If you've paid a deposit, you should have had something from Tim by now to ask you to pay the balance. Then shortly, once all those are done, the remaining figures that were available are going to go onto pre-order and then order when they arrive. Parker, there's a fair few Parkers left, but the remaining Tracy boys, Alan, Gordon and John, are in extremely short supply.
Yeah.
So keep an eye there, and if you need any help, then just reach out to the support team on the store, because Tim and Louise are brilliant, and they'll try their best to make your dreams come true. Finally, if you're looking for a Gerry Anderson bargain, Captain Black Friday is on its way.
Very nice.
Yet again, the last Friday of the month of November. We've got all sorts of discounts and bundles. Load of stuff slashed by 50%. A lot of stock stuff will be slashed by 50%. So a great time to pick up some bargains. And it'll run from the last Friday of the month. It's like the 28th, I think it's the 28th. Through to Cyber Monday, the following Monday, with special offers each day as well. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up something you've been dreaming of there.
Yes.
And I think for now, that'll do. It's the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. That was the news. Yeah. Great.
Well, you clearly enjoyed that selection.
I did.
Very glad. So, Richard, what else have you got for us from around the Podsteron universe?
Well, I mean, it's all go, isn't it? And it's particularly all go on our Facebook page at the moment, where Willow Lambden Smith is back in isolation on Tracy Island, updating her diary every day as to what's been going on on Tracy Island over the lockdown here in England. So do pop along to facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, answer a few questions, and you can see what she's been up to as well. CJ List also posted an essential list for all your lockdown needs. Now, this is courtesy of BritBox, which I think offered him various alternatives for his lockdown viewing, being, of course, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Stingray, Fireball XL5, Catweasel, Box of Delights, Tots TV.
Gosh.
You remember that?
I do remember Tots TV.
Yeah. He says, however, they do lose a point for flipping the stock image that they use on the sort of profile page for the Gerry Anderson stuff, which is a shame. Jenny Davies says, yippee! The jigsaw is finally finished on day 4 of the Thunderbird 2 jigsaw puzzle, and she posts a picture of a fantastic jigsaw puzzle she's been working on over the past few days. She says it was a bit hard, but I did enjoy putting it together, and it was quite a joy when when I put the last piece in. Yes, I bet. She says, a big thank you to my mum, Anna, for helping me out, and I hope everyone there is safe and well. That's great, isn't it? Anyone else got a Thunderbirds jigsaw puzzle they're going to be doing over the next few weeks? Because really, now is the time. But, imagine if you lose that last piece. That's going to be infuriating, isn't it?
It will be. Now, don't forget that you can actually get the Gerry Anderson vehicle size chart jigsaw puzzle over at the store. I think there's about 10 of those left in stock at the time of recording. So
great.
You might want to grab one. I think it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, so that'll keep you busy. Good luck.
Oh, absolutely. Well, good luck with that. Rob Doyle has been listening to First Action Bureau, of course, and says, the plot thickens. No spoilers, he says, but episode 8 is brilliant. Good. Well, I mean, we're just about at the end now. We've got one more to go, I think. Episode 10 out this week.
I think episode 10 has just come out, yeah.
Right. So. Okay, well, there we are. So do let us know what you thought of the First Action Bureau. Hugh Morn says, is it me, or was there a name mix-up on my Magnum Solero post in the recent pod? Yes, Hugh. Now, that was my fault. I did get my knickers in a twist a bit. I ascribed the wrong email to the wrong names occasionally. He says, I have no complaints, so I'm actually amused by the confusion. I kind of needed it anyway, as I had a Tom Thumb Tempest attack on cloud-based nightmare scenario last night, specifically the kind where one has a nightmare as a result of a strong heat source. In my case, I made the rookie mistake of leaving the radiator on in my bedroom overnight, so either way, any laugh is better than no laugh at all. I love these little insights we're getting into people's lives. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Isn't it just?
I mean, have you ever had a nightmare that was induced by having a radiator on overnight? It's very specific, isn't it?
It is very, very, very specific. No, I mean, I had a dream the other night that somebody tried to barge me off a seat, and when I woke up, it was because the dog had jumped on me.
Oh, I mean, that's like the old classic, isn't it, about dreaming that you're eating a bowl of shredded wheat and you wake up and the pillow's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened to everyone, hasn't it?
It's happened to everyone. Yeah. David Monday says that my 4-year-old daughter had never seen Fireball XL5 until roughly 3 weeks ago. Now she's obsessed with the show and spent the afternoon trying to build it out of Lego as a present for Venus and Steve's Zodiac. Oh, isn't that sweet?
That is very sweet.
So how are we doing out there, Podsterons? Is anyone out there introducing any Gerry Anderson series to maybe their children or grandchildren for the first time? We'd love to know, or godchildren, or just friends' children, or, someone else's children. Let us know either on the Facebook page there or podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Let us know what their reactions are, because we love to hear how the new generation enjoy Gerry Anderson shows.
We certainly do. And if you are doing that fine work of indoctrinating children you have permission to indoctrinate, then thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yes, exactly.
Not sure I should use that phrase, indoctrination.
Maybe not. No.
Anyway, let's move on very swiftly. We've got an interview, Richard, or the second part of one. Should we have that?
Yeah, let's have that.
Well, it's Byron Atkinson-Jones, part 2. He's a self-proclaimed super nerd.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice chap, very interesting chap, and it's the first time we've had anybody from the gaming industry on to talk to us.
Yeah.
So completely different perspective. And this time we get into all sorts of areas, including CGI versus practical and how the two combine, and if there's going to be a point where CGI does become so convincing that practical sort of falls away.
Or surely it should be the other way around.
Well, practical is so good that CGI falls away.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever be possible to make practical cost less than CGI, but there's all sorts of cool tools out there coming along, and Byron lets us know, as well as giving it some recommendations for upcoming fantastic games if you are a gamer of any sort. So, without further introduction, here is Byron Atkinson-Jones, Super Nerd, Part 2. I want to just touch on Byron Terrahawks before we cross into your kind of moving into games and early gaming experience and that sort of stuff, because that's the thing that actually got us connected. So we released some concept work from the new Terrahawks that's in development.
You know, the Zeroids.
Absolutely.
They're my favourite on-screen robot. I mean, most of the other show kind of blurred out for me a little bit, but the Zeroids, especially Winsor Davis as Zero itself, was I love the line. Your problem, you've got no art. It's just brilliant. I loved it. It was just so on piece.
They were fantastic robots, and I'm amazed that they weren't more of a licensing success in the 80s, because they are so cool. I was obsessed with Zeroids when I was a kid. I had footballs that I painted silver and painted all the detail onto and bounced around the place.
Well, I've got to tell you this. I mean, before appearing on this podcast, right? I mean, I had to clear with my boss at Sony. So look, because everything's so secret, we have to clear everything we do, right? And I said to him, look, been asked to appear on this. Did you mind? And he gave one word answer, and it was FAB. Just like
amazing.
Awesome. But he then revealed that he had a Zeroid football.
There you go.
I said, you were kicking a Zeroid's face. That's heartless, dude.
Einstein would have approved, I think. See,
yes,
so when I really wanted one, even Dad could not get me a Zeroid football, so I had to make my own. So, that, I'm scarred for life from that. So, off the back of seeing Thunderbirds in Space 1999 and now being slightly more grown up and discerning, I assume, in the early to mid 1980s, clearly the Zeroids made an impact. But, I mean, had you yet drawn the lines between these shows, and what did Terrahawks feel like in comparison?
Well, obviously the stories and the interaction between the characters is vastly different. I mean, I think I said it on Twitter that it had its own style. Very much so. That's obvious, yeah. I mean, the characters weren't really nice people anymore. I mean, Einstein himself was a bit of a beep towards Zero and stuff like that. And
he could be unfair.
Nice. And this whole the fact that he's actually one of 9 clones. And, when he dies, his brain takes over the body of the next one who doesn't know he's a clone. It's
pretty dark,
creepy,
isn't it?
Yeah. It is dark, yeah. And again, we're kind of, blurring the lines between who's really the bad guy here. But the thing that really draws me even more so, and I think I remember seeing somewhere it supposedly had a less budget than Thunderbirds, but it doesn't look like it. Because the ships themselves were vastly more detailed.
Had a lot lower budget. I mean, like 10% of Thunderbird's budget, something like that.
It doesn't look like it.
I think that's because Dad was very good at bringing together teams of young, enthusiastic people that wanted to learn and get a start in the industry. And he did that all the way through Century 21, through the 60s and 70s, and bringing those people up through the ranks. But the 80s was the start of a new gang. So Steve Begg, in particular, who started completely fresh, really, he'd done a few small projects in his own stuff, came in and was trying to be the next Derek Meddings or the next Brian Johnson. And he did. I mean, he is that now. He's worked his way out. But the effect stuff, I think, on Terrahawks is awesome. Puppets, the designs, the feel of them. There's something slightly lacking in them.
Well, it moved from the Supermarionation stuff into the hand puppet stuff, didn't it? So they were very different. But that allowed for a greater expression of character, which you can see. But it does take away from that Thunderbirds feel. So not only now have you got the story as being more, I'd say more adult, okay? Yes. But I want to say acting and the storylines are a bit more childish, okay? So you've got this kind of juxtaposition of things going on here. And then the special effects look as if they're a lot more upmarket as well. So this mishmash of things going together, but the humour of Zero, the interaction between them, that's my defining memory. be honest with you. That's what I remembered the most. So when I saw the picture of the new Zeros, I was like, yes! Because I would have just had a show with just them, to be honest.
Well, it was potentially mooted after Terrorhawks, Zeroids versus Cubes, and we've played around with that idea a little bit, but we've made way for the new Terrorhawks development because there's some cool stuff going on there. But they are a great set of characters in their own right, and I really hope they'll be the kind of the BB-8 of new Terrorhawks. The thing that really grabs people's imagination, because Terrorhawks got their first rolling robots, not blooming BB-8.
Yeah. I always remember the were they ping pong ball eyes?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they did cut bits out to put the lights in, but yeah, they were half ping pong balls pretty much. So, but we'll leave, unless you touched on Dick Spanner, the stop motion series, which was on Network 7 on Channel 4. By your face, I'm guessing not. No, well, it was an extremely low budget stop motion series about a robot detective called Dick Spanner who inhabits a parallel universe not far from our own and solves crimes or not because he's pretty useless, and it's just full of puns and gags. It's on. Have a look on YouTube after this. It may or may not appeal, but voiced by Shane Rimmer, who did with the voice of Scott Tracy. So it's kind of like Chandler-esque 50s spy cross sci-fi in a stop motion style, really quirky, very odd. But let's leave that there. So.
I'd be interested to hear one thing about, you talk about my influences growing up, but of seeing this stuff from a distance, but how did that affect you growing up with it? I mean, that must have been...
Well, I actually was a Doctor Who fan as a kid.
Did that cause problems?
There's a documentary which many of our listeners have seen called 30 Years in the TARDIS, or on the long cut of that, more than 30 Years in the TARDIS, there's an interview with me and Dad, and he says, the greatest tragedy of my life is that my son Jamie is, and I say, a Doctor Who fan. So I just fell in love with it early on. I did love the other stuff, and I particularly loved Terrorhawks. But it's weird, you grow up around it, and so it's normal. Anyone's upbringing, no matter how good or bad, is to some degree for them normal because it's their only experience. But it was 1990s with Thunderbirds coming back, and then Dad did a show called Space Precinct, which is a live-action sci-fi cop show. So
with even better models there as well.
Weirdly, Steve Begg again, same guy from Terrorhawks who came all the way through. He hates the model work on Space Precinct, but I think it's great. Yeah, he thinks it's really disappointing, but I think it's fantastic. And so, I spent a huge amount of time there at Pinewood on the sets and stuff, and it was just intoxicating, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now and talking to you. So there you go. But I hope it hasn't made me too weird, other than looking a bit like the Hood from Thunderbirds. I think I've turned out okay.
It's fine. You live the dream.
Here on Movie Alpha. So we take you from Terrorhawks and enjoying the Anderson stuff, from getting into sci-fi and wanting to inhabit these worlds and somewhere connect with them. So what's your kind of childhood and teenage and career path from there? What are the games that you get into from this point, and how do you make your way into the world of games professionally?
So there's a link between the games and, say, Terrorhawks, okay? So you think of the Zeros now, the face on, you've got the ping ball eyes looking at you, right? And there was a game released by a favourite game developer called Andrew Braybook called Paradroid. You might have to look this up on pictures, but if you look at the starting robot, which is 001, I mean, it says it's supposed to be 001, but to me, I saw the spheroid eyes. And if you look it up afterwards, you'll see the connection. It's like there's balls with numbers in them, but 001 looks like a spheroid. But that particular game painted the idea of virtual worlds that were sci-fi. So then, after I suddenly realised that, instead of trying to create these cardboard things, which didn't look very good, to be honest with you, because I couldn't paint them. I mean, have you tried painting cardboard with the kind of paint pots we had back in the day? They just went kind of muddy brown, and that was it, and soggy, and just fell over. And okay, that's a bit of a disaster. But now, suddenly, we got this computer graphics. They weren't very technological back then, very high-tech. But we could do it. We could paint graphics, and now we could create these virtual worlds. And from then on, it's like you go from painting to learning how to code, so you get technical, and you start thinking maths starts to make sense, which you never did before. And then you go on further and further. Technology increases. Now we're moving from 8-bit graphics to 16-bit graphics, more colors, more memory, some more expansive worlds, into 3D, where we can now literally don a headset and actually go exploring those worlds. And it's a clear progression. For me, it's always, all my games have always been sci-fi. Yeah, I have, actually. I don't think I've ever made a game that wasn't sci-fi. The last one I made was literally exploring a big structure at the end of the universe. And again, that kind of setting there is still in the back of my mind, looking back at how, say, Thunderbirds would be done, because you've got the stuff in front of the camera where all the detail and attention is supposed to be, and the stuff behind it is smoke and mirrors and getting stuff to work. It's like how they would do the water effects in, say, Stingray. Well, a lot of that same technology is used, but virtually, but in computer games. We fake it. The caustic effect on the bottom of the water is not real. It's just making colours pulse out of tune of each other. And now suddenly you've got caustic water effects, whereas in Stingray, they might have put a sheet of glass with water between it, shone a light through that, or put a gel and move them above lights to give that effect. We're doing the same sort of things. So all those kind of things, I'm thinking, how did they do that in Thunderbirds? I applied in 3D graphics.
Nice.
But it's the imagination, and the imagination wouldn't have come without having to think about how they would have done those in a practical fact back in those days.
Amazing. So we basically can credit your entire career. It's all thanks to Thunderbirds in Space 1999, pretty much. Okay,
pretty
good.
Much,
Always glad to hear that sort of thing. So what sort of games were you playing then, kind of late 80s, early 90s, that cemented it for you?
They would have been, going to the arcade, you would have seen those kind of two shooters, Space Invaders, that kind of thing, and then moving to sideways scrolling shooters, because, like I say, technology wasn't that great back then, wasn't much available. Moving on for that, if it involved a sense of exploration and story, that's what kind of drew me in. Because I would read books as well, so sci-fi books, fantasy books. It's all about that virtual world, escapism, going somewhere else, being able to be on Moonbase Alpha and things like that, yeah? So if it involved that. Sports, my friends played those, so I play those occasionally. TV, platform games didn't really appeal to me, unless they were sci-fi. Metroid, they were sci-fi, so they would appeal to me.
Okay, so but a mix, but tending towards the sci-fi, which makes perfect sense now.
Sci-fi.
So from your position now working for Sony and being heavily involved with games in general and seeing how far games have come, in terms of the virtual world and the capabilities of stuff like VR versus what can still be achieved with physicals, with models, with traditional special effects, where do you sit on that kind of spectrum? Do you think there's room for both? Are we now in such a strong place in the virtual world that actually you think now that is so impressive and so it can take us so much further than the model effects that sort of stuff is being left behind? What's your view on its importance now?
I think the real stepping stone that's happened recently is a mixture of both those things. Okay, so everybody talked about The Mandalorian when that came out. Have you seen that yet? Do you know how they did the background?
The virtual production stuff is amazing.
Virtual production stuff. That was done in a game engine called Unreal. Okay, and that's available now. I mean, you can download that for free and use it. And they had this massive projection screen behind them, and that would be the world the character's in. But the stuff around them is still practical effects. They're still holding props. They've still got the weapons are still being made by somebody. The costumes are still being made by somebody. And I think that for me is the perfect one. I'm not. I mean, you get the pure CGI shows, and they are great. Don't get me wrong, but I still love the craftsmanship that making something by hand can go into. That gives that kind of connection to the stuff we saw with Thunderbirds and Space 1999. And I kind of hope that doesn't go away, because I mean that's what. I mean, I know I ended up in games, but I actually wanted to end up being in prop making. That's what in my heart. But I have no clue how to do that. There's no career advisor saying, this is how to get into that. Now with the internet, you can just look it up. I nearly ended up. I actually got offered a job to work on Ready Player One with Spielberg. Yeah, the visa thing kind of blew it all up. But that's the power of the internet. Yeah, back then that didn't exist, so I ended up in a career path that. Hey, here's a Commodore 64 that you can do computers. That was obvious to me. But I want to do it. So for me, the ability to make stuff by hand is still where I think we should still be going, but mixing with CGI isn't a problem, especially if you can do it with the virtual production studio like they're doing with The Mandalorian. I know that one of the companies I used to work for, called Rebellion, are now bought pretty much one of those studios.
Well, they've just done Percival, right? That short that Jason's in. Yes, no. We've had a chat with them. We've had a couple of opportunities for that sort of thing. And I definitely think that's the way to go, because it is amazing what you can achieve that way. And you're not having to do the whole extra layer of green screening and stuff. And if you do want to do a green screen bit that it's needed, that can be displayed wherever within that video wall. I mean, if it was a listener, you've not seen it, go and watch the making of The Mandalorian or similar. And
it's mind-blowing. I mean, I thought they were actually real sets. I thought they'd gone out and actually gone into a desert area and sat down there, and the rest of it was CGI. And then you realise, hang on, no, they project that on the wall. Seriously,
it is mind-blowing. So the way it's going, though, Byron, you're saying like, that we should keep the handmade, and that's important. And I only play devil's advocate here because I agree absolutely. You know, we're constantly trying to push our products more towards the handmade and that, because there's a perfect imperfection to the handmade. There's stuff that we can't seem to regret.
Yes.
But we seem to be edging ever closer. You know, you've watched The Mandalorian and seen those things and thought, well, that's real. That is, and only later you find out. So are we coming to a point where we are going to be able to pretty much perfectly recreate that handmade perfect imperfection?
We're getting ridiculously close to it. Do you know about the thing they call the Uncanny Valley?
So we'll put it into words for our listeners.
So the Uncanny Valley is when you're looking at, say, a representation of the human face, and something inside you tells you it's not real. You're looking at it, and you know it's not a real person you're looking at, and you can't quite tell why. We call that the Uncanny Valley. It's the bridging between reality and fake, and somehow crossing it. But now we're getting very close to defeating that. There was I remember I saw it. Somebody posted on Twitter an image of this woman that's been created, and at first you think, that's a photograph. It looks real. But then they show you how they made it, and I think, wow, okay, that's the first time I've seen CGI on a person where I ever thought immediately that's fake.
Wow.
Now, we all saw that. So when they brought out Rogue One and they had Grand Moff Tarkin walking through, and it was very good, but you can still tell it's not real. Or Princess Leia at the end was, again, very good, but you could still tell there was something not quite right about it. And that's the bit they're going to get across. Now, you can get that to a certain degree with inanimate objects, because we're not hardwired to suddenly think danger or friend or foe from an inanimate object, which is where the Uncanny Valley comes from. But it's down to the details now. So when you're making a model, there's an imperfection in the model where a bit of it isn't painted correctly, stuff like that. Noise. You call it adding noise.
Noise, is that the official term?
And if you add noise, artificially, it looks artificial. But occasionally you get somebody who's got that fine enough eye to realise that little link between the artificial and the real to be able to put it off really well. So I'm looking at some things where I think that's CGI. Some things I think, oh, actually that's practical. And the other way around. I mean, I only learned recently that the alien model at the end of Prometheus was practical. I thought it was CGI.
We do see this more and more with people saying, because we did a pilot for a new show, Firestorm, with puppetry a couple of years ago, which is being redeveloped, and there's a new layer of puppetry and stuff going on. It's really complex to try and get it right, but we got to a point with those puppets where people were watching it saying, "Oh, that's CGI." So we've made the puppetry so good and look so good that we are getting that confusion. With that Grand Moff Tarkin stuff in Rogue One, where they had the close-up and the saccades of the eyes and stuff and the little micro-expressions, you could see how much effort they'd gone to, and I don't know how many artists must have been involved with that. Huge numbers, and yet it's not there. But it sounds like we're just starting to cross the threshold. And I guess that's going to cross into games as well, with increasing processing power and new consoles and stuff. It's going to start looking like we're playing a movie.
The lines are getting incredibly blurred. I mean, we're seeing games come out now where you think yourself, that's film quality graphics maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and we're going to get closer and closer. The budgets also go up massively as well. Then people start saying, we didn't make as much money back on that game, so is it worth making that to level? But ultimately, I don't think, I that practical versus CGI is a personal thing for me, but ultimately it doesn't matter. What I want to go is, I want to see on TV, I want to see on the big screen something I enjoy. How it was made is something I'm interested in, but for me, the primary thing is it's there.
It's the story in the world and the characters that you want to fall in love with and want to explore and understand, right?
Exactly. I want to see more of, Don't want the story to end there. I want to see more of that.
Amazing. If you could take one Anderson show and have it rebooted or turned into an amazing game, only one though, which one would you go for?
Okay, film. I want to see a reboot of Space 1999. Because I would love to see where they would go with storylines on that kind of basis there. I wouldn't necessarily have the moon boosting out of orbit. I would have it maybe something on a space station that goes wrong or something like that. because the moon going orbit, we know that destroyed the Earth, and that's kind of bleak. And also, that moon moved either incredibly fast, or they were a bit lax with the, we crossed huge distances.
Yeah, there were some science issues there for sure.
Game-wise, I love the idea of Stingray, actually, underwater.
Okay.
Yeah. We did have it with the game called Subnautica, which is an underwater game, but Stingray going through the water and seeing that, because I like underwater stuff, especially in graphics, because you can do so much.
Okay, right. So Space 1999 reboot, Stingray game, you're a happy man. Perfect. Byron, this has been awesome. I really enjoyed it. Just finally, before we sort of sign off, are there any games coming up that you think Anderson fans will love in the next kind of 3-6 months that will appeal to kind of sci-fi, world exploring, that kind of stuff?
Oh, there's lots going out on the PlayStation 5. Exploration-wise, you look at Watch Dogs Legion. So I've only seen videos like everybody else has. We don't get to see nice stuff. Okay, we're how do you make these triangles appear on the screen kind of people? Sure. So, but we see the game. We sit there watching the games online at the same time everybody else does. So we get the same announcements. But we see things like Watch Dogs Legion. And I think to myself, that looks so immersive and so detailed. Being able to go around London, even though I live in London, I want to explore London. It's weird. I don't know, but it's there. What's the other one?
Yes,
Cyberpunk.
that does look rather spectacular, doesn't it? So,
yeah, Cyberpunk is gonna take up the nice sci-fi pieces, and I've only seen videos that I don't even know what it's about, but I just think, that looks.
There you go. Okay, well, 2 titles for gamers to try. But if people want to find you on social media, how do they do that? Where do they find you?
And I've got the most awkward Twitter username ever: XIOTEX.
Xiotex with an X, with 2 X's.
2 X's, yeah. Somebody said to me, when you're thinking up your business name, think something that's memorable. I mean, Xiotex. They didn't say that's something nobody could pronounce or spell.
Well, now everybody knows how to pronounce and spell it. So there you go. Listeners, please go and follow Byron. Thank you very much for his contribution today. Byron, I've really enjoyed our chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Doing great.
Thank you very much, Byron. Please do go and follow him on Twitter and say hello. I'm sure he'd appreciate a little hello from you, Podsterons.
Yeah.
We're going to have a few more interviews like Byron's over the next few weeks because I quite like this sort of different perspectives element that's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've rather enjoyed it. It's a bit like... Sorry, go on. Yes, go on.
No, after you, Rich James, please.
Well, I was going to say it's rather in the vein of Alex Bell, who was the one of the QI elves who joined us probably about this time last year or gosh.
I guess it was.
It's that sort of a sideways glance of the Gerry Anderson universe, isn't it? From, for someone in a sort of at first glance, a kind of unrelated industry.
Well, exactly. And I sort of quite like that because it gives us new perspectives. In fact, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got a great chat with Matthew Sweet. Lovely Matthew Sweet, who hosted me on the Barry Gray thing on Radio 3. Yeah, and as I say to Matthew in his interview, he's so smart, just speaking to him makes me feel stupid. That's not because he's in any way patronising or condescending. He's just such a brilliant guy. And I learned stuff about Dad in that chat. So you can really look forward to that. It's going to be a real good one. Another good one, though, before that is Theo Priestley, who's coming up for the next couple of weeks. Theo is a futurist.
Oh, yes.
So it's his job to look at trends and technology and see where things are going and help inform policy and other decisions. And it was a really good chat to sort of look at the retro futurism of the worlds of Anderson, things that Anderson got right and things that the shows didn't get right. And kind of the place of science fiction and its effects now, and whether it's diluted by the availability of information and all that sort of stuff. Really interesting too.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed these last few chats, so we're very lucky to have such great guests. So yes, next week and the week after, Theo Priestley, then a couple of weeks of Matthew Sweet. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy all of it.
I should Coco, absolutely right. Yeah, I'll be listening for that. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us right now. There'll be a follow or a subscribe button for you to hit. That simply makes sure that you are aware of every new pod as soon as it drops. And also, you can share it with your friends there. So just copy the link and share it on all your social media profiles and let people know you're listening, and they might want to listen too. Yeah, they might. Now, talking of social media profiles, are you familiar with Twitter?
I believe I have used it once or twice.
Yeah, Yes, well, so have a lot of people like Thunder Furybird, for example, who hashtagged us and said, I finished listening to 2 podcast episodes back this morning. Great as always. I can't wait for next Monday's podcast. SIG Podsteron out. Thanks for joining us, Thunder Furybird. Kelly Haycock says, forget lockdown 2 and the elections in the USA. I'm just excited for Thursday morning because it means another round of First Action Bureau. Hope you've been enjoying that, Kelly. And Jamie, you yourself tweeted, have you tried First Action Bureau yet? If not, let me know why by replying to this tweet. And Gavin Robertson got in touch to say, I'm not in it.
Always a great way to get a job, isn't it? By complaining that you haven't got one.
Oh, but hang on. I mean, there's always Series 2, isn't there?
There is always Series 2, yes.
And James Hawkins, rather, not Jack Hawkins, that's someone entirely different. Rather interestingly, he said he's waiting for the full series to be out so he can binge the whole thing.
Yeah, we've heard that a couple of times.
Yes, great. So I guess, James, you might have pre-ordered your CD copy. Or
maybe he just wants to listen on the podcast app, which is totally fine. There is a CD available. We're putting the finishing touches to it now, including a third CD, which will be full of behind-the-scenes featurettes and music suites and other goodies. So definitely get that. Yeah. But the edit on that will be a feature edit, so non-episodic, just straight through like an audio movie. So it could be quite a different listening experience, I think.
And might that be available in time for Christmas, do you think?
That's the idea, yes. We cannot guarantee it because sometimes these things don't work out. But yes, that is the plan. You should be able to get it in time for Christmas, but you can pre-order it now. We're only doing 500 copies. It's just a limited collector's edition, so go and grab that if you want to.
Jamie, you've obviously had a lot of time in your hands this week, because you also tweeted, and to fans, what can we do to help you through this next lockdown? Fab Live, watch-alongs, audiobooks, books, more YouTube content, more First Action Bureau? What would help you through November? Now, Gary Hodgkinson replied and said, it would be great to have a Fab Live lockdown version, if possible. Captain Kangaroo, that's Eric, said, I don't know, I'm still having to go to work here in the US, but maybe videos where you teach Anderson history. I liked those videos where you talked about painting hands or toured your dad's office. Maybe everyone at home could do online charity auctions for the stuff you found. CJ said, what about more of those videos where Brains showcases a vehicle from the Anderverse? They were brilliant. Oh, and more content from Chris Dale. It always cheers me up. Jake Gardner says all of the above and perhaps another make competition to get our creative minds working. We need something to do. Born Fighter says more physical books on Gerry Anderson projects you have rights to, including Into Infinity, Space Precinct and Firestorm, etc. And finally, this is my favourite, Vinny Bartolucci says $350 million and a really good Chinese takeaway within walking distance. So...
Your wish is our command.
Yeah. So quite a few suggestions there. I mean, a lockdown Fab Live is certainly doable, isn't it?
I think we could and possibly should do that sometime this month. So, yes, stay tuned. We'll see what we can arrange.
That's right. And what about more of those videos where Brains showcases a vehicle from the Anderverse, says CJ? It's an idea, isn't it?
There may be things like that going on. I couldn't possibly say.
All right. Jake Gardner, all of the above, and perhaps another make competition. Well, Jake, nothing to stop you making stuff of your own accord and perhaps posting the results on our Facebook group so we can all have a look.
Yeah, love to see that.
So, do that. And more physical books from Into Infinity, Space Precinct, etc., says Born Fighter. Well, I suspect they're on their way, but perhaps not this month.
Yeah, I think you could be right, Richard James. Those things have a bit of a lead time on them, don't they? But they are...
they do.
Yes, there's things happening.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we, Richard James... Because he's been waiting there so patiently and so quietly.
I know, he's been tapping his foot a little bit, though, to be honest.
Well, I think that was just in anticipation rather than impatience.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the rather marvellous Chris Dale, who brings us his fantastic randomiser every week, where he watches a random episode of a random Gerry Anderson show and comments on it.
Yeah, that's about it.
Right, well, should we just let him do his randomiser then?
Well, go on then.
Go on, Chris.
Level off.
Leveling off, sir.
Well, it's very nice of you to let me see inside the cockpit like this, chap, sir. How long is this trip going to take?
1,600 miles from London.
Oh, tell me about it, and it feels like further. It's getting on for a year since I was last there, and...
With this tailwind, we should be there in 70 minutes.
We should be in London for lunch.
Oh, lunch in London. Or anywhere. It would just be so nice. I mean,
There's no response at all.
Good.
Sorry, just remembering. Well, since you were kind enough to give me a guided tour, it's only fair I repay you in kind and tell you that you two have been selected to press the button on the randomizer today.
We can't have.
Well, don't sound so thrilled about it. I just thought since you're both about to die horribly and be reborn under the control of an evil alien intelligence, you might want to...
What?
Nothing. Mr. Co-Pilot Chappie, would you like to press the button today?
Yes, sir.
That's it, thank you. Oh, and by the way, who exactly provided your voice? Nobody seems to know.
Someone or something.
Well, glad we've cleared that up. Right, what do we have today?
Mayday, mayday.
Oh, excellent. Yes, it's been a while since we last heard from the Secret Service, so...
Trouble on the port outer, sir.
Uh-oh.
We've lost all power.
Ah, yes, it's probably my cue to leave. I'll just strap on my parachute and, Oh, bother, must have left it on the ground. Well, I guess we're already heading that way anyway, so...
Send out a mayday to London.
The radio's dead, sir.
Well, here's Mayday, Mayday. Let me give you a hand with that radio. So, welcome back to the Secret Service on the Randomiser. I don't think we've been here since...
Is made up.
Oh, the summer, I
And
suppose.
sign the oil concession.
I think you are wrong.
The money will be used for schools, hospitals, irrigation schemes. How can this be wrong?
And I can't remember what country we're in to start this, but
The decision is not yours.
the world president is here as this king or prince or whatever, and they're driving into some stock footage from Joe 90, the episode King for a Day. But up on the roof, new footage, there's a sniper waiting to take down the president or prime minister or whoever he is. Oh, he's got him. Oh, the guard's got the assassin, and he's making a run for it.
Are you all right?
Yes, it's just a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound. I'll cancel the arrangements for your flight.
No, the oil rights agreement is too important. We go to London as arranged.
The Moldovan oil concessions are very important to us. Now that the king has arrived,
I've arranged for you to join his retinue to be at hand watching for trouble. Nothing must happen to him here in Britain.
We understand, Bishop. We'll carry out your plan.
Remember, we're responsible until he finally arrives in New York. And they have already been...
After that, I don't much care.
Yes, indeed, we must remember that. Goodbye, Bishop. Well, let's get started.
I love how polite Father Unwin and the Bishop are to each other. Of course, Matthew's here as well. He's been briefed too on this important mission to protect the Moldovan chappie. And now it's time for the shrinking. Oh, this time they're going right as they leave the vicarage. Normally they go left. This is the sort of interesting information and fascinating facts that you only get by listening to the Randomiser. Oh, and I love this shot of Gabriel going over the bridge. Ah, and there's some more reused footage from
Kind of you to let me join your retinue.
Joe 90.
Well, now the oil agreement has been signed. I am glad to have a man of intellect to talk to.
Oh.
And you may recognise the voice of the
Session to our oil field.
Moldovan king is David Graham.
To visit my 4-year-old son. We can have a longer discussion on the plane.
Who this was the first of only 2 episodes of the Secret Service that he did voices in. He's not credited for this, but it's very clearly him.
Good night, Father Unwin.
He's off to bed.
You can come out now, Matthew.
And I've always wondered if maybe Graham's involvement in later episodes is due to the fact that
At 2 a.m.
David Healy, who had been a regular voice artist through Captain Scarlet and Joe 90, he's actually only in 4 episodes out of the 13 of the Secret Service, so maybe they felt they were a man down. Why not get old, reliable David Graham in to build up the numbers a bit? Anyway, the king, he is a king, and even if he's not a king, I'm going to call him a king, is now safely tucked up in bed, and this is quite well done, but I suspect if this show is ever released on Blu-ray, it will look pretty bad. Obviously, the puppet is sleeping in bed, but there's Matthew, a little dummy of Matthew standing on a chair nearby, and then they cut to the real Matthew puppet, and it's pretty much the set behind him is pretty much indistinguishable from the other one that the king puppet is in. Anyway, There is now an assassin making his way down the side of the building. This is getting a bit reminiscent of the attempt to kill the Director General at the beginning of Winged Assassin. Sleeping in his hotel room, and then a chap comes down on the rope. Luckily, the Director General had Captain Grey. The King has Matthew, who's just, standing on the chair in full view of any assassins who happen to come through the open window.
Wake up!
Bit of a security breach there on Father Unwin's part.
Yes, Matthew?
A man outside the king's bedroom.
Do what you can.
It's quite a nice bit of puppetry as well, the way the assassin swings into the room there. And of course, ironically, I believe this is the puppet that played the Director General of the United Asian Republic. Anyway, what's Matthew going to do to stop him from stabbing the king?
Stop!
Just reveal himself.
A demon! Be careful! We're a long way up!
And that's it for the assassin. He was so freaked out by seeing Matthew, he's fallen out the window to his death, and I believe that is, with the possible exception of one more later on in this episode, I believe that's the only time that you can look at a character in the Secret Service and say they died. Not that anybody actually confirms a death one way or the other, I don't think.
Just he may sleep again.
As they never do in this show. Nobody ever, if they get killed, which is very rare that you can even assume they got killed, nobody will ever say it.
I'm glad you'll be on the flight to New York tomorrow.
Meanwhile, at Precision Instrument Makers is Captain Blue, sporting his
press the button to set it.
His brown hair for the Secret Service.
Let's see if the dimensions are correct. Excellent.
I didn't expect you to put it in a teddy bear.
Didn't you?
No, it's the sort of thing used in, a time bomb, for instance.
Is it?
Yes. During the war,
Ahmed will pay you. Goodbye.
So this chap has just
goodbye, your
How much?
handed over a detonator or a timing device, which they've just promptly put in the teddy bear. I love how casual they are. It's like when he says, "Oh, that's the sort of thing used in a bomb." Is it? Is it really? Well, there we go.
Anything foolish, have him taken care of.
Oh.
You understand?
I understand, Highness. It will be done.
Now we're at London Airport. It's looking a bit smaller since the Thunderbirds days.
Destination on several occasions prepares to go aboard the royal plane.
What time's the big match, Joe? A couple of minutes. Hang on.
I have a small present for your son.
Uh-oh.
A teddy bear for my favorite nephew.
That chap. It's the same box. The one with the teddy bear.
What are you talking about?
If it was for a bomb, they'll all be killed. I've got to tell somebody.
Tell him what? Hey, Joe.
So he's not got a problem with a bomb being put in a teddy bear until he actually sees it being handed to someone else, and then he's like, oh, now I should probably tell somebody. But unfortunately for him, he's being shot at by some live action people, and he's fallen down on the steps of the police station. And again, this was the thing I mentioned earlier. It's not established, it's not clear whether he's dead or not.
Father Unwin. Thank you.
Certainly being shot down on the steps of the police station, he should have a good chance, but...
yes, Majesty. We take off as
we never establish death one way or the other in this show, because it so rarely is an issue.
To the luggage compartment. Would you like her to take your case, Father Unwin?
No, please. No, I prefer to keep it, thank you.
Oh, yes, can have the case. So, the Moldovan flight to New York is off. Captain Grey is piloting this week. And, this is the same passenger plane set that appeared quite a few times in Joe 90.
You fixed the canister in the cockpit?
Yes, Highness. To the automatic pilot. When they switch it off, it activates the device for 10 seconds. That will be long enough.
Good work. If the bomb fails to detonate, we will still succeed.
Oh dear. That's it. The plane's off. Bombs and devices and all sorts of terrible things on board. I love that as well. That's probably the only time in Anderson history you get an advert break cliffhanger, a shot of a teddy bear. And it's not even a particularly sinister teddy bear, it looks quite sweet. More reused Joe 90 music here as well. I like that it's the World President puppet playing the King of Moldova, and the last time we saw him in production order, I believe, was Joe 90 Viva Cordova. He was Juan Cordova, who was very sort of oblivious to the fact that people were trying to kill him. He would often, fall asleep.
His last words were, "sewn into," and that was all.
Your pilot has been informed. He says nearest landfall is Iceland.
Was that a confirmation of his death, or did I waffle over the fact that he just lost consciousness?
What is the pilot's plan?
Unless you find the bomb in 30 minutes, he'll ditch in the sea and take to the life rafts.
He's already in touch with a weather ship in your vicinity.
Good. Meanwhile, we'll search for the bomb.
Where do I start, Father?
All the luggage is in the rear compartment, Matthew. Search everything. It may be quite small.
I understand, Father. I'll use the mine detector from the case.
Oh, and a rare mention of one of the devices that Matthew's little case is supposedly loaded with. Yeah, as I mentioned with Juan Cordova, the World President puppet was playing a character who was very oblivious to what was going on around him. He slept through assassination attempts, and he's now sleeping through all this going on.
Ditching impossible. Waves 30 feet high.
No, they're not. I can see they're not. Oh, waves 30 feet high, and there's the Kraken. Oh yeah, can't land here. Oh no, it's 11:15. Matthew's scanning away. He's right next to the bear, but he hasn't gone to look at the bear yet. $11:20.
The alternative. Switch off the automatic pilot. We'll start our descent.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
RM1 to Markham. Request you stand by to assist if possible. I will be...
Knockout gas overpowering the captain and co-pilot here.
Receive you, RM1. Please repeat. Come in, RM1.
And I believe this would be the last time we see Captain Grey in the Supermarionation universe. He's now unconscious.
Contact with RM1. Please advise.
As is the co-pilot. So there's nobody flying the plane at this point.
Yes, Bishop. I'm on my way to the flight deck to investigate.
King is still asleep. Thankfully, Father Unwin is on the case. He doesn't have a clue what to do, but he's on the case.
Oh, this is awful. The pilot and co-pilot both appear to be unconscious.
I'll turn you over to air traffic control in Iceland. They'll give you full instructions.
Try not to speak gibberish to them.
Listen carefully. You're now level at 20,000 feet.
This is another David Graham character.
Try a gentle left bank.
And speaking of last appearances of things, this would be the last appearance of the airport control tower set that I think goes all the way back to Winged Assassin. Yeah, Unwin's taking the controls, taking the plane down. Matthew's having a hard time in the back, and he still hasn't found the bomb.
Well, Control, we're now at 15,000 feet and flying more or less straight and level again.
Well done. Keep her like that.
And this is a rather familiar Anderson trope of a plane needing to be talked down or flown down by our heroes. We've had it before in Flight 104. We'll have it again in The Protectors with Talk Down. Harry Rule is left in charge of a plane. Actually, it feels like the kind of thing that should have appeared more, but actually doesn't. Oh, Fireball XL5, Space City Special. Yeah, Venus has to fly a plane.
At that height, you'll kill yourselves by depressurization. Descend to 5,000 feet before opening the hatch.
All right, but you'll have to instruct me.
Matthew's found the bomb in the bear. We've got to lose some height before he can open the door.
When I bring the plane level, open the hatch and jettison.
Also an interesting
I'm all ready.
Nitpick here. The stewardess who was seen loading the teddy bear and various other bits of gear in the back of the plane apparently just doesn't exist by this point. You would think that being a stewardess she would have stayed on the flight, but we don't see her anymore after...
I'll have to watch the slipstream.
Well, after that moment when she puts the all the gear in the back.
What's happening? We're climbing again.
But then she's a female character, and this is the Secret Service, disappearing into a plot hole. She's probably getting off quite lightly. She's lucky she even made an appearance, really. Oh, it's nearly 12 o'clock. And Matthew has chucked the poor old teddy bear out. Oh, Bombs Away. I believe that was the original title for this episode, and the poor old bear has been destroyed. Poor old teddy bear.
The King's coming up to the flight deck, Father. This is my chance to get back in the case.
Very well then, Matthew.
What's happened, Father Anum? I'm afraid, Your Majesty, there was a bomb on board, but it's been located and disposed of.
So go back to sleep.
But if you were here, who found the bomb? I didn't.
The stewardess? Oh no.
Great helper, surprising, saucy most. Oh. I have a helper, deep joy of the miniaturization, all tiny, very invaluable. Tiny. I must soon attempt a landing, Your Majesty.
This is, yeah, we've got to get our unwinnies somewhere in this episode, but it doesn't quite fit.
I find I can trust you, Father Anum.
It doesn't quite fit the moment, I don't think. Anyway.
All secure, Father.
Splendid.
Wish us luck, Matthew. We'll probably need it.
Control to RM1. Do you read me?
Yes, Control. Come in.
You're wandering slightly off course.
And as I said before, this is a trope we've seen elsewhere in the Anderson universe, and really, when you've seen this scenario played out once, you've seen it played out in all the possible ways that it can be played out. You know the hero is going to land the plane. You know he's gonna be a bit, it's gonna be a few near moments, but he'll make it. And so listening to the adjustments and such.
If you look straight ahead, you'll see the airfield.
It's never really a hugely suspenseful climax.
At 5,000 feet.
But it is nice to see
Sent to 1,000 feet.
Father Unwin actually being a bit more proactive than normal. He's actually flying a plane.
Descend to 1,000 feet.
It's strange to see him doing anything with vehicles other than Gabriel.
You are coming down too fast. Ease her back just a little.
Yep, coming down too fast. What's another thing? Oh, forgetting to lower the undercarriage. That's something that often happens. Do we think Unwin will forget to lower the undercarriage?
We have you on both binoculars and radar now. You're doing well. We'll have you down on the ground in just another couple of minutes.
How many pieces? Well, that depends on you.
Emergency. Full power. Take her up again. Full power.
Oh, what's happened? Could it be that he forgot to lower the undercarriage?
What happened, Controller?
You almost landed with your wheels up.
Oh, did I call it? I called it.
The airfield for another attempt.
Yep.
And I'll give you instruction about lowering the undercarriage.
Yeah, we've been here before, we'll be here again, so it's not, as, well, to a viewer in the 60s, not that there were many viewers for the Secret Service in the 60s, it might not have been so obvious, but when you've got all of the episodes and you can watch them anytime, and you've watched them to death, as I have, these kinds of things do stick out all the more. But then I'm not sure what you could really do with this scenario and make it different. But the lack of tension or suspense here is quite unusual.
A single lever.
I mean, even the music
Pull that.
isn't really supporting this the way it could.
Release your undercarriage.
But then the Secret Service didn't have too much music that,
Wheels down, sir.
really reflected sort of an action scene as such.
You're positioned right on the runway, less than 200 feet up. Keep her flying straight and level.
Come on. I'm losing patience with this, actually, because this feels like it's been going on for far longer than it should have.
You're now only 75 feet above touchdown.
And we still have no music.
Sag. You're almost there.
Come on. Music time. Bum, 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 bum. Well, okay, that's Thunderbird's music, but it would have fit. He's down.
Look, something's gone wrong.
She's out of control.
Sharp right off the runway. Oh dear. Crashed into a radar van. Oh. And when we cut back to the model, it's just stopped.
For a novice, that was magnificent.
Are you all right, Your Majesty?
That
Yes.
That puppet playing the airport control guy looks like he's got one eye a different colour than the other. Looked like he had a blue eye and a green eye. Anyway.
Today, I have chosen a quotation from the book of Job, chapter 36, verse 13. The hypocrites in heart heap up wrath. The people who hurt us most are those who profess to love us, and yet deliberately deceive us for their own ends.
Yeah, but did you actually get the king to New York safely? I mean, that was the plot, and you got him to Iceland, and that's where the story stops. Interestingly, we'll assume that the king got to New York safely. We'll assume that the oil concessions or whatever it was sorted out. We have to assume because the story doesn't really tell us. And that was Mayday, Mayday. You know, I don't remember this being an outstanding episode, but you can probably tell from the way I've been talking about it that it hasn't really done much for me this time round. I like the first half a bit more. I really like that bit actually with the assassin when he sees Matthew. That's something the show could have done more with, I think. Actually, people actually seeing Matthew and quite understandably freaked out. But the second half, the flight sequence, just that protracted landing scene just seemed to go on forever. It hit every trope that we've seen with this before and we'll see with it again, as I said. And yeah, it's like the story didn't quite finish. What happened? What happened after that? You know, the bad guys were still out there. The king was still in danger. And he was nowhere near New York. So, it almost feels like there's a part 2 to this, which we're not going to get because that was the whole episode. So as it was, Mayday, Mayday, not one of the better episodes of the Secret Service, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, another random randomiser.
Yes, will you
completely random?
Will you go and watch that episode yourself now, or will you watch a previous episode of the Randomiser, or will you go and subscribe to the Randomiser's very own podcast, the Gerry Anderson Randomiser with Chris Dale?
Yes.
I highly recommend you do that.
Yeah, also, let us know if you have been watching along with Chris. So every week, do you sit down, listen to the podcast and the randomiser, and then think to yourself, right, I know what I'm watching tonight. And if you do, let us know. And do you agree with Chris, or have there been some violent disagreements in your own head? Let us know. Yeah.
Yes, well, I know lots of people have found their ways to new shows or revisited old ones along the way. I have a not dissimilar question, but I would really love Podsterons to write in and answer me this. Is there any Gerry Anderson show, or even a single episode, which on first viewing you could not stand? You thought, this is rubbish, I hate this. Which you have now revisited because of the podcast, the Randomiser, or just randomly, and now you love.
Interesting.
So, is there an episode or a series which you've become a convert of, you now love, and how and why did that happen? I'd really love to hear your stories on that. It may be Terrorhawks, it may be Joe 90, unlikely. Maybe it's even Thunderbirds. I mean, Chris Dale was talking in his video for Halloween on our YouTube channel about how he found the hood so scary in the opening of Trapped in the Sky they could barely watch it, and yet revisited it and fell in love with it. So, yes, what did you hate that now you love, and why? Email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, or share your story on the Podsterons Facebook group, please. Group.
Yes, I heard that. Yeah, we'll keep that in. I bet there are some stories like that, because obviously if you watch a story as a kid or a young person and grow up and see it again, you're looking at it through a whole different lens of all your life experiences and so on. And I'm sure there are episodes that, you either didn't like as a child and do now, or even vice versa.
Must be, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably loved Torture when you were a kid and you watch it now and think, oh, dear, no. Yeah, who knows? Let us know. Anyway, Richard, we're rambling on and making requests, but we're at the end of the podcast now. So
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Shall we just kind of wrap things up?
Well, maybe till next week.
Yeah, okay. So pod 128, I suppose, is next week.
You're on.
We look forward to hearing from you before then, and we'll read out your emails and tweets and stuff. Please make sure you're subscribed and you've rated and reviewed. And until then, we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Richard James?
Oh, yes, Jamie Anderson.
I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, no. What have I said?
It's a festive bone.
Is it?
Yes.
Right.
And that bone is that I tried to get you to accept a gift of a Thunderbirds Christmas jumper.
Oh, that's true.
And you very politely declined, and I just wondered what you had to say for yourself.
Oh, am I being hauled before the court here to make an account of myself?
Slightly, but I've got a good idea, though. So tell me why, and then we'll make something good of it. And if you've listened this far, then you're in with a chance of something good.
Okay, yeah. It's simply because I've sort of made a bit of a pact with myself that not to sort of buy or accrue stuff that I don't need.
Nice choice of words there.
Well, yeah, and I have a Christmas jumper from last year, which I shall be wearing with pride over the Christmas period. But I suggested to you, Jamie, that perhaps you can only have so many Christmas jumpers,
which many Christmas jumper collectors would disagree with.
Well, there we are. That's just my personal opinion. Other opinions are available.
Well, Richard James, something good is going to come of this.
Oh, good.
So now you have declined a Christmas jumper.
Yes.
It means that there is one that's available.
Yes, okay.
To somebody deserving.
All right. And who's made it through to the end of the podcast. So if you've listened to us this far, drop us an email, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Yeah.
And just tell us why you'd like a Christmas jumper.
Yeah.
And we will reward one of you with a Christmas jumper. So just write, I've got no Christmas jumpers and I love it, or I got last year's, but I've been furloughed and I don't want to spend on it, but I'd love one. Yeah. Anything like that. Don't make it too much of a sob story. Just be honest and don't make anything up. My dog ate it and I've had to live in a hot air balloon because of something else.
Yeah,
I don't know, whatever. Don't make
Easily.
stuff up. Just give us some real genuine reasons and your size and your address. And we'll pick one of you to get a free Christmas jumper, to get Richard's Christmas jumper that he didn't want.
Yeah, but now I feel like something good has come of that. So
exactly.
I feel like it's that's nice.
Always trying to turn a negative into a positive.
Well, that's why I'm here on the podcast. That's my job. Doing my job.
Richard, N for negative, James.
Yeah.
Now positive. Okay, there you go. So thanks, Dickie. And thank you, listeners who've listened this far. Now we're definitely going. Bye.
All right. Merry Christmas.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.